The green room buzzes with quiet energy. Assistants bustle past with headsets, clipboards, and iced lattes. Mark Wahlberg walks in with his signature swagger, wearing a black-fitted t-shirt and jeans. His entourage trails behind, but he waves them off, wanting a moment alone before the show. The room is sleek, leather couch, cold blue lighting, and a monitor showing Stephen Colbert finishing his monologue on the studio stage. "Same old setup," Mark mutters as he grabs a bottle of water and sits down. A few beats later, Diane, one of the show's producers, enters. She's polite but visibly tense. "Mark, hey, just wanted to give you a heads up. Stephen's going to open with a quick joke about your old quote, about 9/11, nothing harsh, just a bit." Mark raises an eyebrow, the bottle pausing at his lips. "That again?" "Just a quick jab. Audience eats it up. He'll pivot right into the movie." Mark leans forward, voice lowering. "I've apologized for that more than once. That quote's old news, and people love dragging it back up like I haven't grown since then." "I get it, but this is the Late Show. You know how Stephen works. He keeps things sharp." Mark shakes his head, jaw tightening. He watches the monitor as Colbert finishes another biting punchline about politics, and the crowd roars with laughter. "Yeah, sharp's one word for it." The door creaks open again. A young production assistant walks in with a steaming cup. "Mr. Wahlberg, your coffee." Mark nods but doesn't take it. His mind is elsewhere. He stands pacing. If he wants to talk about the movie, great. If it turns into a roast, I'm out. It won't. He respects you. Just roll with it. "Yeah?" Mark looks at her, unconvinced. "I don't do ambushes. You tell him that." He walks over to the mirror, adjusting his shirt, trying to refocus, but his expression in the reflection is a mix of skepticism and restrained frustration. The EPA exchanges a nervous glance with Diane as the stage manager calls out, "Mark, you're up in 2!" Mark squares his shoulders and exhales through his nose. "Let's get it over with." He steps toward the door, the mood following him like a shadow. The applause is still echoing as Mark Wahlberg walks onto the stage, flashing his trademark grin. Stephen Colbert rises from his desk, arms open for a handshake that turns into a half-hug. The band fades out. The two men sit, the stage lights warming their faces. The energy feels right for now. "Mark Wahlberg, ladies and gentlemen," Stephen says, the crowd cheering again. "Great to be here," Mark replies, adjusting in his seat. Stephen starts light. They trade jokes about Boston, fitness routines, and Wahlberg's burger franchise. Mark seems relaxed, even cracking a joke that gets a genuine laugh from the host. But then Stephen shifts in his chair, picking up a card from his desk. "So Mark," he says, smile still intact, "you once said, and I quote, that if you'd been on one of the 9/11 planes, things would have gone differently. Still stand by that?" The audience's laughter is uncertain, part nervous, part amused. Mark's smile falters, his jaw tightens. He glances toward the crowd, then back to Colbert. "I've explained that quote a dozen times," Mark says, evenly. "It was taken out of context, and I've apologized for how it sounded." Stephen nods, still smiling but not letting go. "Sure, but let's be honest, that's not something you accidentally say on a Tuesday morning, right?" A ripple of laughter from the audience. Mark's posture stiffens. He leans in slightly, locking eyes with Stephen. "You want to talk about the movie? Let's talk about the movie. But if you're just going to recycle headlines from 15 years ago, we're wasting time." There's a moment of silence. Stephen holds the pause, like a pro, then chuckles, trying to pivot. Okay, we'll shift gears. But hey, credit where it's due. You've had quite the evolution. I mean, from boogie nights to producing faith-based dramas, that's a journey." Mark doesn't laugh. People change. That's kind of the point, right? Stephen raises an eyebrow, sensing the tension. Absolutely, growth is good, but we still get to ask the questions. Mark leans back, expression cooling. The smile is gone. Ask better ones. The crowd reacts, some clapping, others murmuring. Stephen blinks, caught off guard for a half-second. A flicker of something unsaid passes between them. The warmth has left the room, replaced by something colder, more real. Stephen clears his throat, regrouping. He gives a short, practiced laugh, the kind meant to diffuse tension without admitting it's there. The audience plays along, but the energy has shifted. Mark Wahlberg sits upright now, arms folded lightly, watching Stephen with unreadable eyes. "Let's lighten things up," Stephen says, glancing at his notes. "You've got this new action film. Explosions, helicopters, lots of running in tight shirts. Classic Wahlberg. Tell us about it." Mark nods slowly. Iron resolve. Plays a Marine vet turned private contractor. We shot it all practical. No green screens, real locations, real danger. Sounds intense, Stephen says, and yet somehow no one got tackled for making a joke about it. A beat. The audience laughs, unevenly. Some wince. Mark's head tilts just slightly. The smile he forces is tight, barely covering his rising temper. "You really going to keep pushing, huh?" Stephen shrugs, playing innocent. "Just having fun, man." "Nah," Mark says, voice calm but sharp. "You're not having fun. You're picking shots, trying to make me the punchline." Stephen leans back in his chair, arms folding now. "Mark, I think you might be overreacting. You've done late night before." "Yeah, and usually the host's got a little more respect." There's a low murmur from the audience. The camera zooms out slightly, catching the sudden change in body language, Stephen's guarded stance, Mark's rigid frame. "I've sat in that chair," Mark says, nodding toward the guest seat. "I've taken jokes. I've made jokes. But there's a line. You're not asking questions, you're baiting." Stephen raises his eyebrows. "This is a comedy show, not 60 Minutes. And I'm not here for a roast." Mark stands. The audience gasps. A few phones are already filming. "I came here to talk about the work, but if all you want is a headline tomorrow, congrats, you got it." Stephen stays seated, expression neutral, hands still folded. "Hey, if you want to leave, that's your call." Mark steps away from the desk, towards stage left. A stage manager appears near the curtain, wide-eyed. "You don't get to play victim now," Mark says over his shoulder. "Then don't act like a hero," Stephen replies flatly. The cameras are still rolling as the show abruptly cuts to commercial. The backstage hallway is buzzing. Crew members scatter as Mark Wahlberg strides past, jaw clenched, shoulders stiff. A security guard walks a few steps behind, not escorting, not restraining, but close enough to keep things under control. Diane, the producer, catches up with him halfway down the corridor. "Mark, wait!" she calls, breathless. He doesn't stop. "Let it go," he says, voice low but seething. "I said what I needed to say." "You're trending already," she blurts. Clips are hitting Twitter. Mark spins around. For a moment it looks like he might explode, but he doesn't. He just stares at her. Exactly what he wanted. He says, "Set me up, turn me into a meme." Diane steps back slightly, hands raised. That's not what this was. He improvises. He always does. It wasn't personal. Mark breathes heavily through his nose and glances at the ground, lips pressed in a hard line. He made it personal the second he turned a serious moment into a joke, he says. "I've been through too much to let that slide." They stand there for a moment. The hum of the studio continues around them. Crew voices, walkie-talkies crackling, a distant laugh track piped into the hallway. From the stage, the sound of applause begins again. The show has resumed. Mark looks toward the green room door, then toward the exit. "Text my team, I'm done here." A younger production assistant hovers nearby, nervously holding Mark's jacket. He hands it over without a word. As Mark shrugs into it, someone off to the side calls out, "Sorry, Mark!" He doesn't answer. He's already moving again, cutting through the chaos with focused silence. Back on stage, Stephen Colbert sits at his desk, now composed, addressing the camera with a practiced smirk. "Well, folks," he says, "sometimes you plan an interview and sometimes the interview plans you." The crowd laughs, some still buzzing from the tension. Stephen moves on, introducing the next guest with polished enthusiasm, but the edge in his voice is still there. Backstage, Mark pushes through the side door into the cool night air, leaving behind the buzz, the lights, and the show. A black SUV is already waiting. He gets in without a word, the door slams shut, the vehicle drives off, and just like that, the internet begins writing the next chapter.